Alright, so how are you doing?
Fine.
Doing good? A little hot in here?
A little warm.
A little warm?
A little warm.
Not used to it?
Not used to it. Don't like it.
Alright, so why did you join the Marines and how?
It was 3-4 of us got together right out of high school, and we just wanted to join the Marines. I had relatives that had joined the Marines, that were in the Marines, and you got to join the best.
So that was the main reason?
Main reason is either that or you're probably going to get drafted, and didn't want to get drafted.
Gotcha. So how did you end up on the Curtis?
From boot camp, went to Camp Pendleton, where I was there for probably only a month. Then one day got orders to go to MCRD to C school. And while I was there, I was on a movie platoon and a drill team. And then all at once, during that period of time, so they called me in for an interview. So a couple of civilians in suits, and that I had no idea who they were or what they were doing. Just asking me different questions. And during that period of time, they asked me for references back where I was from. So I gave them the reference of our family priest, a neighbor on the farm, and a good friend of my folks in town. And I suppose about a month later, I got a telephone call from my folks wanting to know if everything was okay. And I said, yeah. I said, why? And they said, well, the neighbors came over one morning about 8:30 and never even knocked at the door, just burst right into the house and asked if I was okay. And they said, why? And they said, well, the FBI and the Naval Intelligence was up there that morning asking questions about me. Then all at once I just received orders to go aboard the Curtis. Wasn't told why or nothing. That was my next duty, so you did what you were told.
So there were civilians at first? Or was it FBI that was asking you?
That interviewed me? I have no idea. They were dressed in suits is all, and they didn't say, they just, and I don't remember what questions they asked or anything at all. That's 55 years ago.
Oh yeah. So what was the life like on the Curtis? Like friends-wise?
Warm.
Warm?
While we were over there, yeah. No, I enjoyed the Curtis. I had the guys that I was with, probably 3 different batches of guys that came and went, and that was good. I mean, only had to walk a little ways and you were to the head, a little ways away you were to chow, and it was good. I enjoyed it. I was on there for 1.5 years.
So, who were your friends, and what did you do for fun?
I had one particular good friend who I went through boot camp with, and up at Pendleton, and through the drill team, and all that. George Kelly was his name. We got out of the service. We joined the same day and got out the same day, but he was from Ohio. When we got discharged, we took the bus together as far as Omaha, Nebraska, and he went east and I went to Great Lakes. He was out of the service for a number of years. And then he got back in again and worked his way all the way up to captain, and he was a Vietnamese prisoner interrogator in Vietnam. He passed away. He's the one that found most of us guys on the Curtis for these reunions. He'd never been married, real computer-wise, and did a lot of computer work, and found most of us. He passed away about three years ago, exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam, and it was cancer from top of his head to his toes, bone cancer and everything else. He probably took about 50 pills a day. Experimental drugs through the VA. He stayed fairly healthy until about 3 weeks, and then he was done. Morgeau here, McKenzie. Most of the guys that are here now were aboard when I was aboard at one time or other. Some came on with me, some came on probably in the middle of my tour there. Yeah.
So what was one interesting or fun thing that you guys did at the Curtis?
Well, they had a room where we could go, had a bunch of mats where you could wrestle, play a little cards, played a lot of cards, pinochle and different things that we did probably down in our bunk area. But there was one room where they had mats on and you just fooled around.
So,
Otherwise, there wasn't a lot to do.
no. Is there one funny memory that you have? I'm sure there's a lot, but
And probably not.
no.
I probably don't want to mention it.
Is there one that's not as bad?
While on liberty or while aboard ship?
Both.
Well, there was a couple of us went out on liberty from the Curtis in San Francisco, 3 of us, and we bought probably a half pint or a pint each. We went to a movie, sad movie, and I don't remember what the name what it was, but we weren't feeling sad, so they asked us in a real, well, not so nice way to leave. So we left, and when the bottles were empty, one of the guys started crying a little bit and was begging the other 2 of us to hit him and all that, just because he had a crying jag on and wasn't feeling real good. Well, anyway, we caught what they called a jitney, like a big limousine, to get us back to the ship. And on the way back, he got sick. And of course, it was in December or January, and had these long winter coats on with the big lapels. And we just pulled the lapels up over his nose, and he proceeded to get real sick. But the officer of the day, the officer of the deck, was a young ensign, and let us get him aboard. We practically carried him aboard, and we got him down, just threw him in the shower with his clothes on, and washed him off. Next morning, he was in his bunk. One of the fun things we did.
Out of the many.
Out of many.
Okay, so other than the bomb, what was the most intense moment on the Curtis for you?
I guess just standing watch, where I stood most of my watch while aboard ship. There was a place called the Pyro Locker. That was the name that we had for it. If that was the official name of it, I don't know. And you were told not to stand within 2 feet of the door. It was in the middle of the ship, and we stood on the deck outside and told not to stand within 2 feet of the door. If you stood 3 feet away, you fell over the side. And I guess that bothered me, but was never told what was in it, except you guessed that it was something to do with the reactors, with the bombs and stuff. It had I remember one time I was there and they opened it and it was like a thick vault door. And that was where aboard the ship. Other than that, when I spent a couple of times out on barges where the bomb was. One time there was about 7, 8 of us got on an old plane where we sat on each side with the planks with the little dish in it. You sat in there, and they flew us to another island, and we came back on a barge with a bomb, and there was other things like that. But aboard the ship, I think that Pyro Locker thing was, you stood there for 4 hours at a time, twice a day.
Just watching it.
Pardon, on watch, yeah.
Watch.
And with the exception of a couple times, nobody ever went in, or you'd check their ID and stuff, and nobody ever went in it.
Nobody wanted to.
But that was a 24-hour station. I mean, you were there. There was somebody there at that door 24 hours a day, all the way over and while we were there. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. If you're comfortable, tell me about the bomb. If you, yeah.
When it went off, you mean?
Yes.
Well, of course, everybody talks about the big one, and we were sitting on the deck. I didn't have, most of us didn't have goggles, so we were just asked to take our caps off, put them over our eyes, fold our arms, and turn our backs to it. Well, that's what we did. When it went off, the light came all the way through, and it's like putting a flashlight under your fingers, you can see through, like that, and that was what you could see through your arms. And it got real bright on your eyes, and the heat in the back of your neck, it got hot. And I don't know, we sat like that for a few seconds or so until they told us all clear, and we stood up and we watched the mushroom, and then you could see the shock wave coming through the water. You could see that come. And when it hit the ship, well, I thought the ship was going to tip over. I mean, it rocked it. But it was the most beautiful thing and horrible thing I've ever seen, with all the colors and the rainbow and that perfect mushroom going up. And after, I don't know how many minutes or so, all at once the sand and the mist and everything started falling on us from it. It was something to see. And the big thing is, you know, we were all 18, 19, 20 years old. You didn't know what was going on. You didn't know you were making history. You wish now you would have, at night you would have had a little pencil and paper and wrote down what you did, but you didn't, because when you're 18 and 19 years old, you don't think about stuff like that. You got other things on your mind. Somebody that's back home or something, see?
Yeah. If you had the chance to see it again, would you?
Probably from a greater distance. Yeah, from a greater distance.
Okay. This is an interesting question. If you could relive your whole military experience again, what would you do different?
Nothing.
Nothing?
No.
Okay.
It was good duty. It was a lot better. The Korean War was on at that time for approximately 6 or 7 months while I was in. A lot better than being over there.
Yes. I agree. So, what was your life like after Curtis?
When I got out of the service?
Yeah.
My girlfriend, in the meantime, in the last month or two before I got out, got married. For about 2 weeks is all. Today she's my wife. I've been married for 51 and a half years to her. We didn't get married for about 3 years or so. I got a job right away because you didn't have any money. I stayed with my folks probably for the first couple of years. I lived with my folks, and they couldn't understand why I wanted to go to town. I lived my folks were farmers, lived in the country, and I was only a mile and a half from town, from the city, and they couldn't understand why I wanted to go to town every night. But I had to be with somebody. I mean, you live with a bunch of guys for 3 years, and all at once you come home and you're with your mother and dad. And there's probably a whole bunch of 4-letter words that they don't like you to hear, and they were used a number of times, slip of the tongue, but they couldn't understand, why I wanted to go to town every night, or to the city, or to go to the bar, or wherever, VFW Club, Legion Club. That was probably the biggest thing of not socializing with a bunch of guys.
So, did you have to deal with any sickness?
Lately, then, or how long?
Well,
anytime.
If it was connected to Curtis, yeah.
Okay. In 2003, I lost my voice. Went to see a throat specialist, and they took a malignant tumor off my vocal cord. So I couldn't talk for a couple of months or so. Then my voice gradually came back, and when he found out that I was aboard the Curtis and this thing like that, he said file a claim. So I filed a claim with the VA. Had prostate cancer last year. 2 years ago, I've had 2 tumors taken out of my bladder. One of them was close to being malignant. They just said you can't be close, but they said it didn't warrant treatment at that time. Another month it probably would have warranted treatment. You want to hear about my experience with the VA? I filed a claim in the fall or early spring of 2004 or late 2003 with the VA. And for 2 years, every month I would get a couple of letters stating, just be patient, we're working on, sometimes 2 letters a day from the VA. And then in 2006, in January, I got a letter from them stating that they were going to send all of my military records, all my medical records, and everything to Jackson, Mississippi. Be patient and all that. And that was the National Defense Reduction Agency, where they tried to reevaluate your exposure to radiation. And then I kept getting letters stating, be patient and all that. This year, in 2008, January, I received a letter. They denied my claim. The next day I got 27 pages of why they denied the claim. Two of the things that stuck out in my mind as to why they denied the claim. One of them was I didn't have cancer when I got out of the service. Well, I was never checked for cancer. They didn't check to see if I had a tumor or anything. The other one was that the Japanese in Nagasaki and Hiroshima didn't show an increase in vocal cord cancer after they were bombed. Of course, most of them were dead, so what difference does it make? So now I've filed an appeal. Two choices they gave me. One was a traveling board appeal, which would come to St. Paul. Another one was a telecommunications appeal, which you get on TV and they talk to somebody in Washington or Virginia or wherever. But was told it'd be a year to 5 years before them appeals would come along. My cancer doctor for my throat wants to go along to the appeal because he said I've got questions that they can't answer because they will cover cancer of the esophagus, the pharynx, and like that. And he said the vocal cords are all part of the same thing. He says that's like going in there and insuring your hand, but they won't insure one finger. It's all part of one thing. My file with the VA is about 3-4 inches thick with the letters that I've gotten back. Most of it is because of the radiation thing is what they won't accept. But just wait and see.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
And most of the guys I've talked to, here now there's only one other guy that I've talked to that has had his record sent to Jackson, Mississippi. I don't know.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just
Don't know.
So, what do you think, do you think, because apparently a lot of people are getting sick, you know, they have tumors and stuff, do you think that's, something that VA wants to hide apparently, or is it because of secrecy, or?
I think it's because they don't want to admit it, that we were all exposed to that much radiation. And they're guessing. I wore a badge, and one of the papers that comes out, it said the badge said this much. In the next line, it says that that badge was unreliable. So they're going to estimate as to how much radiation you were exposed to. Okay, how do you make an estimate? A reliable or an accurate estimate. And there is a statement made there, if there's a chance of any kind that your cancer was caused by radiation, the swing goes in favor of the veteran. And that's stated, but they keep putting you off and putting you off. Well, once you die and your wife forgets about it.
How does that make you feel as a Marine, as an ex-Marine serving? How does that make you...
There are no ex-Marines.
No,
we're all still Marines.
No, I mean...
no, I
you know what I mean.
Ex-serviceman.
Yes.
Okay.
How does that make you feel?
Well, not very good now, because I thought, you know, if there was something wrong and you had documentation that you were there, you were entitled to it. They just feel you're getting shafted.
And considering that, you would still do the same thing?
Oh, I think so. Because of the bomb. I mean, there's something, ain't many people have seen that.
So
I had my name on one of them, and most of the guys wrote their name on them when you were walking around these things on duty. You took your pencil out and you wrote your name on it.
So, how do you perceive the bomb? I mean, what do you think it did in your mind?
Oh, I think it stopped the war. I think it stopped one from happening, because at that time it was the big thing with Russia, you know. And during that period of time is when they made the nuclear agreement, you know, to do away with their testing. See, I was on Operation Castle and Wigwam, and I think Operation Red Wing was the next one, the last one, as far as setting off. And they cleaned everything up over there, and that's when they ceased their big testing in a way.
So that was the biggest bomb, biggest hydrogen bomb, or?
Yeah, on Operation Castle, yes. Yeah.
So did you guys know that you had something big?
Not that big. It was twice as strong as it was going to be. Was what they had estimated. It made a hole. They didn't have the instruments to measure the depth of the hole that it made. It blew the island away.
Wow.
Miscalculation, and that it states right in there too. The scientists made a miscalculation. And when I was aboard one of the barges where we stayed, you know, for 2, 3, 4 days at a time, you ate with the scientists, you slept with them, and we were eating with them one night, and they were some of them were from Los Alamos. We asked them just how strong they were expecting this one to be, and they said, well, to put it in terms that you could maybe understand, you've got a stick of dynamite, and you got the cap. The cap sets the dynamite off. Okay. The cap would be like the ones they dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It would take that one to set this one off. That was what they were expecting, and that's not the big one. This was one of the smaller ones.
Wow. So you guys actually knew that there was a...
It was going to be big, but I'd never seen one go off before, so, you know, you didn't expect that mushroom to go that many miles in the air, be that bright, that hot, or to get rained on.
So, it's just surprising. I didn't think you guys actually knew what you had to guard.
No.
Just didn't.
No, they didn't. You didn't tell. You were there. You knew you had clearance because we had badges. So we knew we had clearance, and we knew that it was probably going to be radioactive or something, but you weren't thinking you were going to be involved in it or subject to it, see?
Gotcha. So what's one highlight, or what was the highlight of this reunion to you?
Just seeing the guys.
Just seeing the guys.
It makes you cry. When somebody ain't there and something happens. Yep. You know, we're all 75, 80 years old. There ain't going to be many more reunions.
How many reunions have you gone to?
9.
9.
Well, I wasn't to the first one because they didn't know where I was. We've had 9 reunions. This is the 10th. This is the 10th reunion. So I've been to 9 of them.
And
they didn't know where I was the first one.
And how many? So I assume some guys didn't show. Cause we heard about one guy that he was supposed to be here.
Yeah, yep, and he had pancreatic, and it went to his liver. Now he'd signed up. There was a couple other ones that signed up to be here, but he was the worst one. Figure he's got maybe 30 days. Yeah.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, it is. We got a minute or two?
I don't know if you got...
Okay. I was to the USS Curtis Association, which is made up of Navy personnel. Had a reunion a year ago today, or a month ago today, in Branson, Missouri. And the wife and I went. First, I belonged to their association for 6, 7 years. So the wife and I went there. We drove somewhat 700 miles, beside the point. But there we talking to them guys, and they're having the same problems as we are. Not all of them, not as many of them, but those who were involved in the washdown of the ship after it was subjected to fallout are having the biggest problem because they were outside washing it down. And most of them had protective clothing on while they were out there. We didn't have nothing. We never had anything to protect us while we were doing our duties or anything else like that. But they're all having the same things, and they gave me a name of a commander in the Navy whose dad was aboard the Curtis in Pearl Harbor, and this was a lady. She was a full commander, and she has been helping the Navy guys with their claims a lot. She's retired, and she's in Washington, Virginia, and that. But they're having the same problems as what we are. Not percentage-wise, not as high as percentage as we are, but some of them are.
What's the percentage with the Curtis Marines?
Oh, I would say at least 75%, if not more. That is why everybody is fighting it, because I think on the average in civilian life, you're maybe down to 25 or 30%. Then all at once it jumps up to 75% of the people who were there. That should tell you something too.
If you had to say one thing to the people about this, it's definitely obvious. What would you say? If somebody's watching this, what would you want them to know?
About the bomb?
No,
about the VA?
Yes, about either VA or how you feel about the issue.
I think it had to be done, but the VA should be taken care of. Should admit that we were exposed to more than what we were told, or what they're trying to tell us. I guess that's...
Okay. That's all I got.
I do have one kind of question for you, if you wouldn't mind just kind of answering to him. What was going through your head? I mean, the feelings and the emotions when you saw the Bravo shot?
Awesome. And like I said before, it was probably the most beautiful thing because of the colors, the mushroom, the fireball going up, and also probably not at that time, but an hour later, a day later, a week later, a month later, it makes no difference, to think that island disappeared. What if that had been in the middle of a city? And this, that was 15 megatons, 15 million tons of TNT. And those dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, I think, were approximately 20 kilotons, which is 1,000 tons. So how many more times it would have wiped out? It would have wiped out San Diego. Would have wiped out whatever. But at that time, you're 18, 19 years old. You don't know.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Whew, hopefully you're not too hot, right?
No, that's okay. I can go get a Jack water now.
There you go.
Okay.
I'll just take that mic off.
Okay, I don't want to drag that along.
Last time we did this interview, the camera got knocked down and the mic tore off this little piece here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we thank you. We'll see you later.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, you bet.
It.
Okay, what do we get next?
Cheers.
See you tonight. We're going to be at the banquet tonight?
Oh, you bet.
Definitely.
I wouldn't miss
We'll
it.
see you then.
We had...
I'll buy you one.
Ah, thank you, sir.
Okay.
You have a great night. I won't see you then.
I think we're going to go to SeaWorld for a few hours. So.
Well, have fun. Have fun. I'm all of a sudden stricken by jealousy.
I was trying to. It was like, how many guys showed up?
I know, but that was the wrong. You should have been like, what would you tell those people that passed? Well, there's Mr. Terrence himself.
Yep.
This is the interview I've been waiting for.
Oh, I bet you say that to everybody.
Actually, I haven't.
How do you stand this heat, man?
Oh, that's the question. The thing is, I mean, I'd love to turn the cooler here, but the problem is the
It
sound.
makes a noise. Yeah,
Exactly.
You can't handle it.
So we'll air this thing out while we switch tapes here. And Sasha, I'm killing myself right now by that tape. I'm killing myself.
What are we gonna go for here?
Are you rolling? Okay, can you give me a clap right in front of Sasha?
I don't clap, man.
Good.
All right. It's a distinct sound for us.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know.
So, to start out, once again, just tell us your name and just your name and all that good
Yeah,
stuff.
Terrence M. Gardner,
Alrighty, perfect. Now, first question.
known as Limey.
Say that one more time.
I turned Sam Gardner, known as Limey, when I was in the Corps.
Limey. Okay, here's how we're gonna get into that actually. How did you join the Marines and how?
Why I joined the Marines?
Why did you join the Marines and how?
Okay. At that time, they came up with numbers where they were going to haul you into the service anyway. Right? That was about that time. And rather than go in the Army, I decided, coming from England, it was a Navy tradition, more or less. We're an island, right? I was going to go in the Navy, which is basically what I always wanted to do. So I went down Navy recruiter, and he said, no, you're an alien, because I wasn't a citizen at the time. He says, we can let you in with the Filipinos as a steward. And that didn't intrigue me too much. So I went down to the Air Force with another friend of mine, and they said, you're an alien, you can't be in the Air Force. Okay. So all the guys I'd hung around with then after I got out of school, they'd all gone into the service, right? And I was left out there bumming around. And I ran into this Marine recruiter, and he says, oh yeah, show up, we'll put you in. They gave me a bus ticket down to L.A. Got down to L.A., they weighed me and I didn't weigh enough, so the guy gave me some money to go out eating some bananas. So I went out and ate some bananas, came back. He said, okay, you hit the scales right. You're going to have to stretch your neck a little bit because you're not tall enough. So I stretched a little bit. And he said, okay, that's great. And go wait in there. And after I waited in there, he gave me a ticket down to San Diego, and I was in the bloody Marine Corps. I never wanted to join to become a Marine. I heard these other guys say, but I had no intention. I thought if the Marine Corps wouldn't take me, in all probability the Army wouldn't, and I'd get out from being, called up and go out and fight wherever we bloody well fighting at a time. So anyhow, that's the Marine Corps bit, how I got there.
Tell me about the what they had you doing in the Marine Corps. First of all, you told me this briefly before, and I want to tell us this is such a funny story about that carrying the radio.
Oh, when I went to boot camp, they gave you a barrage of testing to find out what the hell you were good for. When I got to boot camp, I signed up to be a heavy equipment operator because I'd learned how to drive Caterpillar tractors and so forth while I was going to high school. And they took that, but they give you these battery of tests. Evidently, it turned out I could handle the codes, Morse code and things like that. I didn't know anything about it, but their test said I could handle it. And they were going to put me in a comm section. And those radios at that time were 60 pounds plus all the other crap I had to carry, and it didn't intrigue me, and I was trying to figure out how to get out of it. They offered me officer training corps. I turned that down because I was really not interested in the Marine Corps as a career in the middle of boot camp, right? And then they asked for volunteers for Sea School. Got a big spark. What's Sea School? You get to go aboard a ship. Navy, just like I wanted to be, right? Terrific. And DI says, don't sign up for it. They're going to do this, that, and the other thing. So going against his better wishes, I signed up for it. All right, then we went, boot camp finished, went to infantry training. And after infantry training, they sent me down to Sea School. You want to go on from here? Yeah. And, went into Sea School, and first weekend I was there, I was restricted to base for being sloppy, things like that. And then I guess these interviews came up, and I was one of those Marines at the time, and a young kid, if they said be somewhere at a certain time, I was there, report to so-and-so. So evidently I reported to these rooms. Civilians asked me where I was from, where you were born, London, the whole bit. And then I guess we got interviewed by Brenneman. Same thing, where were you born, what type of thing you were like. And you're going to, I figured what was going to happen, because they were asking for guys that were 6 feet tall, and I was 5'10" at the time, so I figured I wasn't going to go anywhere, And next thing I know, I had a clearance and had to wait around, did MP duty. That was a lot of fun, I enjoyed that. Prisoner chasing, that was a lot of fun, I enjoyed that. pick up butts out there around MCRD, things like that, and then got called and ended up going aboard this ship. And I thought I was in seventh heaven. I was aboard a ship finally, right? And went out to sea, and then finally found out what we were doing, and I thought it was I never thought anything about it. It's just a job, right? Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the Curtis. I mean, who are your friends? What did you guys do for fun?
Okay, now this is an entirely different story. The one thing I had going in my head that I was not an American, you know, and I'm not an Englishman anymore. I've been in America too long. And when I came to this country, I'd never been in a car before, right? And going through high school was hell because all these guys talked about was their cars. I finally got into it. He knows about that. But I never understood cars. I never understood anything. So mixing with the guys aboard ship was ridiculous. It just didn't work. I just had nothing in common, basically, with anybody. So I ended up with more acquaintances in the Navy. And I very seldom ever slept down in the Marine compartment. I ended up usually up in the Navy compartments, fire control, where I could learn some stuff. So that was pretty interesting. And so as far as having real acquaintances in the Marine Corps or friends, never happened. Never really did. And I volunteered the first time because I didn't like standing watch for the mess decks, right? You had to spend 3 months down there serving food. So after that, it seems like every time it came up for a new guy to volunteer, it seems like my name got volunteered. So I spent a lot of time in the mess decks, again with the Navy rather than with the Marines. And then we got over to the islands where the bombs were and play games over there, and then I had to stand watches and do what had to be done. I got an interview with Washington one time, wanted to know why I didn't hang around with the Marines. And I was terribly belligerent at the time. I said, what's wrong? Don't I dress squared away? Aren't I always on time? Don't I do exactly what the Marine Corps asked me to do? And he says, no problem, it's just your attitude. I never did find out what that attitude was. I guess it wasn't too good. So we did the bombs and everything else, and a couple of times I got sick and ended up, I don't know how a lot of things happen. You know, it's years and years ago, I ended up sick in Army Tripler Hospital in Hawaii and spent 29 days there. And somewhere around I bought a .380 pistol, and I kept it in my locker aboard the ship. And before I came back to the ship, they figured after 30 days you're going to be shipped out, after 30 days in the hospital. And one of the sergeants evidently found, you know, cleared my locker out and found the gun in there and shot a big hole through all the lockers. And that was hushed up, but they did make me put the gun in the armory until we got off the ship. That was interesting. I forget who the sergeant was, but I think the problem of the whole deal was that he was dumb enough to take the weapon out of there and discharge it without checking to see, as a Marine should, whether it was empty or not. Yeah. It was a miniature .45, pretty much. So anyway, you know, that's about the way it went. I was there, but I wasn't there. I wasn't really part of being an American and being a Marine and being part of that whole group. And so it was difficult, really. They called me Limey, right? And that's, I hate to put it on tape, but basically at that time, that was the same as calling a black guy a nigger. And so I was pretty resentful to just about everybody. But I did learn a lot. Go ahead.
No, that's unfortunate, I think. Yeah, tell me about this UFO. Since you had brought it up before.
Yeah, well, there's a while back I was reading about some of these things aboard ship, you know, on the internet, and there's a quote in there about there was UFOs. And thinking back, I remember standing watch on a bow one time, was doing something, and these bloody lights in the sky, you know, 2 of them, flipping around. I never thought about flying saucers or anything like that, or, you know, that they were, I thought they were searchlights, okay? Or whatever it was from the islands, more or less. They didn't have beams, just the lights, you know, like shining up there. So I forgot all about it. But when I read this article, I remember, well, I know what happened with those. They were bouncing out around there, you know, and that's why basically I brought it up. And then come to find out, other people know about it. I didn't want to say I was a fruitcake, you know. I had enough trouble anyway without telling them that.
Oh, funny. Alrighty, so, other than the bomb, what was the most intense moment aboard Being the Curse?
I don't think that, I've thought about that question that was coming up, but I can't really think, apart from the bomb, what really was the most intense. I think one of the really frightening times was when we was coming back with a list, when the ship had been damaged. We were coming back towards Hawaii, and we had about 11% list because the plates had been damaged on the bottom of the ship. And I was a little fearful of having to swim, really, because we'd met quite a few sharks over on the islands, and, you know, hoping the ship would make it. That was about, I think, the most intense, apart from the bomb. And that really was the most intense time of my life, let alone just aboard ship.
Describe that a little bit. What exactly happened?
Oh, physically, right? Well, you know, you're on the deck, they give you these glasses, you're told to cover up, put your hands over your eyes and things, and turn the other way. And just this one bomb went off, and you could see the light was so intense you could see your bones. And to be honest with you, at that particular time, I thought I just died, you know, and they'd made a mistake, and we were all just dead people. You know, then the shock wave hit. You knew exactly where you were. And I think that type of explosion really set me to thinking just about how much damage eventually was going to be done to people with that bomb. Just, and of course that all, you know, it was a flash, more or less, you know, and through your head you thought, my God, what am I doing here? What have we done? And then of course it's sort of all gone. But it's something I've thought about quite often through my life, one time or another, depending, you know, when you see the movies on TV and you see the atomic bombs and you go to these different things like Nevada, reminds me of the same thing, that we're eventually just going to find a bigger and better way of killing ourselves.
If you could go back in time, would you watch it again?
I mean, I hate these what-if questions because, you know, I had no choice at the time. I became I was inducted.
If you had a choice back then, knowing what you know now, if you had a choice,
I would hate to be. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be one of the people associated with it. I don't think. To be really honest with you, I heard some of the other guys say, you know, that we did something that maybe we helped prevent World War III. All I think is that we just put it off. Eventually, well, America used the bomb, but eventually it's going to be the weapon to be used. It's like anything else. When gunpowder was invented, it was fireworks, right? Then they started blowing ourselves up. Better guns, better ways of killing each other, and we got a pretty good one now. So I don't know.
That's not the answer that I expected, but that's still pretty profound. I'll be honest. That's exactly what we're looking for. Wow. Describe what was going through your head. I mean, the feelings, the emotion.
I just
when
did.
Bravo shot. Oh, I know. Just a little bit more in detail. Just one more time.
It was that effect that really I have participated. I think I didn't think like end of the earth at that time, but I've participated in the death of hundreds of thousands of people. And I don't know whether I ask God forgiveness or not, because I'm not a real religious person. but it's something you just block out after a while. Or I did.
Alrighty. What was life like after Curtis, as far as dealing with ailments?
After Curtis, dealing with what? I'm sorry.
Ailments. I mean, were you affected by the radiation?
Okay, after the Curtis, I went into the 1st Marines and, played at being a Marine for a long time. Garrison duty, which is, you just run around and play games, and got out of the service. And I have never thought of illness, right, until recently. And I've never thought of anything being service associated. But my wife's an RN, and she says, you've had back pain ever since she met me. It was right after the Marine Corps. And she says, you're deaf in one ear and can't hardly hear out of the other. She says, you've always been, it's been going that way all your life. Personally, and she warned me not to say this, I can't seriously say everything was associated with radiation. My kids, my 2 boys, had blood dyscrasias. They had problems with their blood. We had to get them blood transfusions, and we had to give them a lot of injections while they were growing up. And checking, back, it could be associated with radiation, could not. And I never really delved into it. But my wife seems to think I'm sick enough now that I should start seeing if we really do have a problem or not. I got a grandkid that's a little autistic, but whether it's because of radiation, who knows? There's a lot of autistic kids in the world, right? There's a lot of people with back pain. There's a lot of people going deaf, so who knows?
Okay. If you could go back and relive your whole military experience again, what would you do differently?
Join the Navy, I think. I don't think it would have done anything. I'll elaborate on that, right? I never realized until a few years ago when I talked with my family how the Marine Corps had literally, I guess, run my life, all my life. The discipline I learned, the honor, the actually being with men, of like type, how you interact with them. I think let me see if I can sum it up. Always try to be on time to an appointment. A little early, but never late. And it has, I think, colored the way I think all my life. Now, I didn't really realize the Marine Corps had done that. Talked to my kids, talked to my wife, and this is all it was the Marine Corps all the way through their life when they were growing up. And that's how it's been. I didn't believe it. But when I talk to Marines up where I work, ex-Marines, and talk to people like that, and ex-servicemen, and all that kind of thing, it's a nostalgia that really hits you. It hits you behind the eyes. You get a little stinging there. And then you tend to realize that this is what the Marine Corps has done to you. It's been instilled in me through my entire life. It's just a way of life you seem to grow with.
What was your first impression of the Curtis?
Well, the only other ship I'd been on was the SS Liberté, and I was seasick the whole way from England to New York. But really, it looked like a pretty big ship at the time, but it gradually got a hell of a lot smaller while I was aboard it. And it was good. I enjoyed it, but I had nothing to compare it with, so there you go.
All right, and I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, and I'm trying to put together little stories and little pieces that I can write together in one script that we can do. So, do you have any anecdotes? Or
well, the only one I got is about that citizenship thing.
Right.
One.
Well, and that one works. I like that. But the one thing on the Curtis, with your interaction with the guys, or with the Navy men, or one particular thing, and you did mention about the UFO as well. But do you have any more that you might be able to share?
No, actually, I don't think there was any. I don't think I had that much interaction with people, apart from I ran a dice game, and you took one chip out of 10 for the poker, and $1 out of every 10 for the game, and the other one I had an Italian friend of mine who was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, and he was getting ready to retire, and he supplied me with pure alcohol. And it would come in gallon cans, and we'd run that through the reefers while I was on mess duty, run it through that gate down there where nobody checked anything. And we'd run it in there, and he taught me how to make anisette, which is 50% alcohol, 50% water, and you go down to the market and you buy that anisette flavored little 1 ounce bottles, anisette flavoring that cooks use, pour it in there, and you've got pure anisette, 50%, you know. So I learned to sell those aboard ship quite a bit. So basically, you know, the Marine Corps only gave me about $400 when I got out, but I came out with a fair amount of money from different things. The other one, like I said, is the immigration thing.
Last question here. What was the highlight of this reunion?
So,
What was the highlight of this reunion?
I think the highlight of any of the reunions I've been on to is that I've learned a whole lot of things. It's brought them back. Things I thought I'd forgotten. You know, how people were and what other people thought. And I never really ever thought myself as a part of this group, you know, any of them. Of course, this one I found out why. Most of these guys were ahead of me. There's just a few that were. Yeah, and that's what reading's done. It's put me in touch with what it was like in the past, and it's helped me associate with a lot of how my life has really been and what it's been due to. I don't think I realized for years how much it had affected me, and especially, I guess, interaction with other people at that particular time that were in the Marine Corps, interaction with other Marines. It set you on an entirely different path, I think, that you don't realize until you can take a look at it more or less from the outside and come back in and see how things are happening. You want to hear about the immigration thing? Or?
I do. Yeah, I do, actually.
Okay, you know I told you all this stuff. I was an alien, and then they wouldn't let me into the service, and I got it. The funny part about it is that you got that interview with the FBI. They knew I wasn't a citizen. With the captain, you know, by interview, he knew I wasn't a citizen. While I was in sea school training, my grandmother from England called and wanted to know what sort of trouble I was in, because the police had been talking to her and the neighbors, and she didn't know why and wanted to know why, and I didn't know why. You know, I had no idea because I didn't want any trouble. And next thing they cleared, I got the clearance, right? We went to sea. I was out there between Bikini and Hawaii, more or less. I called up to the captain's office. The question was posed, do I want to become a citizen? And I was pretty pissed off at the world at that time. And I said, no, I got no intention of becoming a citizen. You know, and the next thing was, well, if we can get it done today rather than you walking back to Hawaii from here, could we do that? And, oh, hell. And they got on the radio, and the radio was set up right there. We didn't have to go to the comm room. The radio was there. We got on the radio, and some judge in San Diego, and I can't remember his bloody name, asked me 3 or 4 questions, you know, and I couldn't answer one of them. And he says, oh, hell, I got to make you a citizen anyway. Okay? And evidently I became a citizen of the United States at that time. And then I didn't realize what happened until I saw that picture again that I dug up from one of the old newspapers. And I'm sitting there holding my certificate when they interviewed me about it. And I guess I'd signed something at the time. But I didn't actually get my certificate until we came back, and Shore Patrol and some guys in plain clothes took me to a judge in, I guess, a federal building in San Diego here. And I held out my hand and actually got sworn in, and they gave me a citizenship papers with a picture on it. And that's how I became a citizen of this country, and it was definitely under protest. But, you know, I've been here ever since, and things have worked out. I think I was an embarrassment. Somebody slipped up. So when I hear these stories about, you know, how important top secret and these Q clearances and how important they were, I sort of chuckle. I guess I'm a little cynical because obviously if they've been that important, I want to slip through to start with. Oh, God, don't put this on the air.
Oh, that's perfect. I like
Hand lip
that.
for you? Okay.
Thank you.